If you enjoy this video and dark histories dude, smash the like button, please subscribe and leave a comment. Russia is moving its troops and military equipment from Belarusian training grounds in the northern and central parts of the country to the south, closer to the border with Ukraine, monitoring group Belarusian Harduan reported on December 20. The group noted that the number of troops and equipment is small, and definitely not enough for any offensive action, suggesting that the equipment and troops may be moved to take part in the next round of joint exercises between Russian and Belarusian forces. This could be a plausible answer given the regular exercises held to establish inter-unit cohesion, like the upcoming Zapad 2023. However, it was exercises like these that heralded the initial invasion of Ukraine, so they definitely should not be ignored. Also, another potential answer to the perceived lack of numbers could be because Russia intends on using Belarusian equipment, thus negating a need for them to be transferred back and forward between countries. Technically, Belarus has the stock of equipment, just not the troops to man them. Vladimir Putin met with Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko in Minsk on December 10 amid a growing number of reports that Russia is stepping up its deployment of military vehicles. The reason for this meeting remains a mystery given the fact that it's normally Lukashenko who gets summoned to Moscow. So what has changed? Perhaps Putin thought he could apply more pressure on him by doing it in person and on his home soil. Apart from trucks and tanks, Russia has also reportedly deployed additional military aircraft to Belarus, including those capable of carrying Kinjal ballistic missiles. Obviously, the defense of borders with Belarus remained among Ukraine's top priorities, but the question is whether they will feel compelled to move more forces from the current hotspots like the Bakhmut zone. Since the launch of the full-scale invasion on February 24, Belarus has participated in Russia's aggression by letting Russian troops use its territory to attack Ukraine. However, Belarusian troops have not been sent to Ukraine, and that raises two questions: why not, and if they do, when? First, let's discuss the current makeup of their forces. In 2007, the land forces consisted of 29,600 soldiers, 1,800 main battle tanks and 2,600 armored infantry and fighting vehicles. The tank force has a large portion of the more capable T-72, although there are some older units like the T-55 included in this number. In 2012 it was reported that there were 6 mechanized brigades in the ground forces, 3 full-strength, the 6th, 11th and 120th Guards Mechanized Brigade. The other brigades were reduced to 1 battalion each. By 2017, the number of mechanized brigades had been further reduced to 4, with 2 at full strength and 2 at reduced strength. In terms of artillery, they are reported to have an estimated 583 towed MSTAB howitzers and some old self-propelled Gvozdika and Akatsiya artillery pieces. In 2007 the air forces consisted of 18,170 personnel. Their equipment included in 2004, 260 aircraft and 80 attack helicopters. According to Belarus government websites, the air forces now have 2 commands, the Western Operational Tactical Command and the Northwestern Operational Tactical Command. The 61st Air Base at Baranovichi flies MiG-29s, and the 206th Air Base has merged into the 116th Guards Assault Air Base at Lida, flying Su-25s. We don't believe that this would be enough Belarusian men and hardware to effectively take on a battle-hardened Ukrainian army. It's currently estimated that after its mass mobilization, Ukraine has almost 900,000 people in uniform. These are all highly motivated soldiers prepared to defend their homeland against aggression. With Belarus having a population of approximately 9.5 million versus the Ukraine's 44 million, it is doubtful that a Belarusian mobilization would improve their numbers of troops sufficiently to make a big difference. We estimate that at the very best a mobilization would yield an additional 18,000 conscripts of highly questionable quality. Then of course you have the problem of morale, given that Belarus would be a third party to this war. The level of commitment of their troops would be a major issue. Also, this is not an army with vast amounts of experience and has been organized to defend against potential NATO aggression to the west, and not a war with its neighbor in the south. Undoubtedly the Belarusian forces would have to operate under the command of a Russian general as part of a combined unit, due to their size, which would generate even further unhappiness. They can expect to be used as cannon fodder, and there is a historical precedent for the poor treatment of non-ethnic Russians in the army. Apart from the size and quality of his army, we believe that Lukashenko is worried about how his people may react. Belarusian society is overwhelmingly against the country's participation in the war, as more than 90% reject the idea of joining on the side of Russia. Sending Belarusians to war could therefore provoke a serious wave of discontent within the country, even more so than what Putin experienced with his mobilization. The Belarusian democratic forces in exile would likely use this to overthrow the Lukashenko regime. Just this week, opposition leader Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya urged Belarusian troops to respond to orders to attack Ukraine by laying down their arms and joining the Ukrainian forces. This point was confirmed by the leader of the Belarusian forces currently fighting for Ukraine. We covered that unit in a separate video that is worth watching. By moving into Ukraine, I think that Lukashenko knows that he stands to lose his control over the country. Previous demonstrations by his population have largely been suppressed by his army's special operations forces. This unit would also be the most effective if called to fight in Ukraine, as it is better equipped, trained, and has experience fighting alongside Russians in Syria. Simply put, if it moved into Ukraine, what would the highly vulnerable Lukashenko do for protection against an angry population? And if he lost control, Putin would lose free access to Belarus and the ability to conduct operations from there. We think that Putin is aware of this risk, and would rather maintain the status quo than affect his base of operations by having a small, potentially unhelpful army assist him in a difficult situation. Despite all the misgivings surrounding a possible attack on Ukraine, the power of Putin may simply be too much for Lukashenko to handle, and undoubtedly, he would have offered the Belarusian dictator some assurances of internal security. The presence of Russian troops within the border may be sufficient to scare any potential localized resistance. Lukashenko has sold his soul and his country to Putin, transforming it into nothing more than a Russian arblast. There has been a long-held belief that Russia helped the aging dictator to secure his sixth term illicitly. Then, of course, there is the theory that Putin ordered the assassination of Lukashenko's foreign minister, Vladimir Maky, an early opponent of the invasion, with toad venom. Was this murder done at the behest of Lukashenko or as a warning to him? As a result of all of this, I think the time will come, if it hasn't already, where Belarus will be ordered to invade. This will probably be in February, just like in 2022, during or straight after the Zapad 2023 exercises. It will be done specifically to open another front to take the pressure off the Russians in Donetsk and Luhansk. If they want to achieve anything noteworthy, they will head for Lviv and cut off the Western support that is helping to turn the tide against them. Either way, the Lukashenko dictatorship is on temporary legs and doomed to end just like all other autocracies from history. So, until now, how have Belarus been helping Russia? Apart from the free use of their territory, the Belarusians have been fulfilling many different roles crucial to the Russian war effort. It started pretty much immediately after the invasion, when the very first Russian casualties were shipped back into Belarus for emergency medical assistance. It was in fact the construction of the vast field hospitals near the Ukrainian border that gave us the first solid indication of the Russian intention to invade. But even these quick temporary structures were quickly overwhelmed, requiring assistance from local hospitals where Belarusian doctors got involved in saving and caring for the Russian casualties. But it also became a stopover point for those who didn't make it and had to wait for their zinc coffins to go home. The Belarusians have now also started helping Russia with the repair of war-damaged equipment. Employees of the Belarusian 558th Aircraft Repair Plant periodically go on business trips as part of field groups to carry out work on the restoration and commissioning of aircraft equipment at the 121st Aircraft Repair Plant in Kubinka, Russia. This has extended to the technicians assisting with removing aircraft from mothballs and preparing them for operations. It should be noted that this work has been focused mainly on the MiG-29. There have also been the tanks and APCs that have been transferred from Belarus to the Russian army. In October, for example, 20 T-72 MBTs were sent by train to Belgrade. A further 80 MBTs and APCs have been sent since to shore up the dwindling Russian supplies. However way you consider it, Belarus has been heavily involved in supporting Russia and are complicit in their criminal activities. Only time will tell if they add military invasion to their list of crimes.